High potential season 2 introducing a clearly defined villain might sound, on the surface, like bad news for Morgan and Karadec. More danger, higher stakes, and less room for personal development usually means emotional arcs get sidelined. But in this case, the opposite is true. The presence of a real antagonist is actually one of the best things that could happen for Morgan and Karadec's long-term trajectory, because it forces their relationship out of comfortable ambiguity and into a space where choices, loyalty, and trust start to matter in tangible ways. Up to this point, Morgan and Karadec's connection has thrived in a relatively controlled environment. Their bond has grown through shared cases, intellectual sparring, and mutual respect, all of which are safe arenas for intimacy. There's risk, but it's professional risk, not personal risk. A Season 2 villain changes that equation entirely. When an external threat applies pressure, it exposes fault lines and strengthens bonds at the same time. You learn very quickly who someone really is when things stop being theoretical and start becoming dangerous. What's important about this villain isn't just that they exist, but that they create stakes that neither Morgan nor Karadec can sidestep. This isn't a problem that can be solved with clever deduction alone. It demands emotional investment, moral clarity, and, crucially, trust. For Morgan and Karadec, that means relying on each other in ways that go beyond professional competence. Trust stops being an abstract concept and becomes something they actively place in each other's hands. Morgan, in particular, stands to benefit from this narrative shift. She's been written as someone who values independence and control, often keeping emotional vulnerability at arm's length. A formidable villain disrupts that instinct. When the danger is real, isolation stops being strength and starts becoming a liability. Season 2's antagonist forces Morgan into situations where she has to lean on Karadec not because she wants to, but because she has to. That kind of reliance accelerates emotional honesty in ways quiet moments never could. Karadec's role becomes just as significant. A true villain gives him the opportunity to demonstrate not just intelligence or competence, but consistency. He doesn't need grand romantic gestures or dramatic confessions. What matters is how he shows up under pressure, whether he protects Morgan's autonomy, respects her instincts, and stands with her even when the odds aren't favorable. These moments quietly redefine how Morgan sees him. He stops being just a partner she works well with and becomes someone she can trust when everything is on the line. This is where the idea of inevitability starts to take shape. Romance in High Potential has always been about timing rather than sparks. The show understands that emotional bonds form not in isolation, but in response to shared experience. A Season 2 villain provides exactly the kind of crucible that turns subtext into substance. After facing real danger together, it becomes harder for Morgan and Karadec to pretend that what they share is merely situational. The villain also sharpens contrast. Against a character defined by manipulation, control, or moral corruption, Karadec's steadiness and integrity become more visible. Morgan is someone who reads people exceptionally well, and exposure to a true antagonist heightens that perception. She sees more clearly what she doesn't want, which in turn clarifies what she values. Karadec's reliability, empathy, and refusal to exploit her brilliance for his own gain stand out even more starkly in that context. From a storytelling perspective, this is smart long-term planning. Rather than rushing Morgan and Karadec into a relationship prematurely, the show uses conflict to deepen the foundation first. Any future step forward between them won't feel like a reaction to attraction, but a consequence of survival, shared trauma, and earned trust. When characters come together after facing a villain, it feels less like romance for romance's sake and more like two people choosing each other with full awareness of the risks. The audience benefits too. A strong villain gives viewers something concrete to latch onto while the emotional arc simmers underneath. Every look exchanged during a tense moment, every split-second decision to protect or prioritize the other, carries more weight. The slow burn stops being static and becomes kinetic. You're not just waiting for Morgan and Karadec to acknowledge their feelings. You're watching those feelings form under pressure. Most importantly, the villain reframes the future. Once Morgan and Karadec have been tested by a true antagonist, there's no going back to emotional neutrality. Even if the show delays any explicit romantic payoff, the dynamic will have changed permanently. They will have seen each other at their most vulnerable, most determined, and most human. That kind of shared history doesn't fade, it anchors. In that sense, Season 2's villain isn't a roadblock to Morgan and Karadec's future. It's the catalyst that makes that future unavoidable. By forcing them to confront danger together, the show lays the groundwork for a relationship built not on convenience or curiosity, but on trust forged under fire. And when high potential finally allows that relationship to move forward, it will feel less like a surprise and more like the only outcome that ever made sense.